Hey y'all, what's going on? What's happening? It's your girl Tiffany here live in the Fed. So I decided to come here, right, to talk about the Amanda Seals debate that she did with the radical, or what she called herself a radical, and it was 20 black conservatives. It was on the YouTube channel called Jubilee, and the show was called Surrounded. So she dealt with various topics. One was about reparation, the other one was about black on black crimes, and the other one was dealing with the systemic racism. So my personal opinion, I thought that the debate was pretty interesting. And there were subject matters that needed to be touched on, that needed to be discussed about. Okay. So majority of the people that was on there that identify as conservatives, a lot of their arguments didn't make sense. Now there were some who had some good arguments. And I think some of them brought up an argument about being accountable for what we do within our own community and how we go about treat each other instead of just placing all the blame on the system. So there was some points there, but she also added on the points about how it's systematic, and also she brought up about the redlining, which is real because a lot of us experience that. So for those who don't know what redlining is, it's basically like the neighborhoods that are considered as the inner city, right? Those areas are bought up by the investors for a cheaper price to be gentrified. Okay, so those areas are considered to be the high crime area, to be the poor area. So she brought that up, and that was very important for a lot of people to really understand about. Um, there were some people that talked about King Von and the music or whatnot, and how rap music pretty much perpetuate violence. Now, in a way, it's true, but in a way, it's also false because we can't solely place everything on rap music. We have to look at the history and the origin of this country. This country was built on the concept of violence. This country was built on the concept of violence. Okay. So you just can't blame the ones in the inner city that's causing the violence. You have to look at the root cause of what came about and how did the violence in our community take place. Because it's not something that just happened overnight. It's not something that people just wake up and say, hey, I want to be violent just because. It's a root cause behind it. So we have to look at it from a systemic point of view. That this country, this government has brought so much violence to black people from the beginning when it came down to slavery, when it came down to the Reconstruction era, when it came down to Jim Crow. So it was so many violence. And I think people tend to ignore that because they don't want to look at that. They don't want to see that reality. And then she also brought up about, let me see, what else she brought up. It was another good point she brought up. I'm trying to see what else she brought up. It was another point. Mm. She did talk about systemic racism. Let's see. She did address reparation. So let's get on the reparation. My position on reparation, we're not going to get that anytime soon. We're not going to get it anytime soon. I mean, that's just the reality because as one of the gentlemen had mentioned, we've been fighting for reparation for a long period of time. Well, our ancestors have. And that's true. And this government is not going to give you reparation. And also, when we have to look at how slavery took place, it was more than just a United States business. It was an international commodity. It was an international commodity that took place. So it wasn't just something that started in the US. So that means other countries that played their role in the transatlantic slave trade, they have to play their part into giving reparation as well. So it's layers to this. So that's the part right there. Also, I'm trying to see what else she spoke on. Now, what? Okay, there were some things I had some issues with because I saw some personal attacks. Like the young lady that came to her, she was a light skinned young lady. She was like, "Well, I don't feel like I'm being discriminated against. I'm getting opportunity or whatnot." She was like, "Well, you're light skinned. I'm light skinned." I understand she was telling the truth, but I think that at the same time it was like a form of personal attack towards her because of the fact that she was light skinned. And then she had a young man up there. He was born in Angola. I think that's where he was from, Angola, but he grew up in Maine. Okay, so she tried to minimize him by saying that, well, you're not even Black American. And that's the part that threw me off because, first and foremost, technically speaking, he's still considered as an American. He's a naturalized citizen here in America. He wasn't born here, but he was raised here all his life. And you could tell that, obviously. So, right there, that kind of showed her biased attitude towards him. Like, you can't just sit here and tell somebody they're not American because they were born elsewhere. If they grew up in this land, grew up in this country, and this is all they know, they're just as American as you are. Okay. But overall, the debate was pretty, like I said, it was pretty interesting. It was very educating because at that point she was educating a lot of them because they didn't really, you could tell a lot of them don't really study much about Black history. And most of them were young. But yeah, they don't study enough. So they're operating from the conservative views that they've been hearing Republicans saying, or all these different rhetorics they put out there. So they go along with those rhetoric instead of doing the actual research, doing the actual homework assignment. Okay. So again, she made a lot of great points. She argued a lot of great facts. But then there was the one with the young lady. I guess she was from Chicago. She mentioned how her brother and her father were birth, were both murdered by Black men. And she was basically saying that, well, at this point we can't continue to just focus on white supremacy all day when we got problems in our community. We can't focus on white women walking around with braids in their hair or cultural appropriation without looking at what is really taking place in our community. So I felt where that young lady was coming from, and I think she really meant well. And Amanda kind of took it as she was just being too argumentative. They both were very argumentative. But the young lady pointed out that a lot of this stuff we have to focus on in our community. And this is why I don't jump on this bandwagon with the whole diaspora wars, because it's so much that we have to unpack within ourselves in our community. It's so many problems that's taking place that we don't want to discuss, that we overlook. We don't look at the fact that there's a lot of abuse, there's a lot of trauma. We don't focus much on the oppression that's happening as far as sexism is concerned. Then we can go into the classism. Now, I don't know, most of those people, they claim they was from the middle class, right? Now, we got to talk about classism for a moment. We got to talk about how poor black people are being underrepresented, how they're being used as a face, how they're being used as a backup for other black people. So people don't really want to get into the question about, well, who benefited from the civil rights movement? Who really benefited from the civil rights? Who reaped the benefit the most? Did the middle class black people benefited from the civil rights? Did the poor black people benefited? Who benefited the most? Who who did it help? Why don't we talk about the classism? E. Franklin Frazier, he wrote a book about the bourgeoisie class, right? The black class. They, it's like when black people leave the inner city and they go into the middle class community, a lot of them just forget who they are, where they come from. And if we want to get really technical and honest about this, it's the black people that's in the hoods or in the lower class that's upholding the black identity, the black culture. They are upholding black history, or at least trying to do so. If you really want to see more of cultural heritage and cultural identity, you would have to go into the lower class community. You would have to go into the ghettos. Because that's what you're going to see. Most of the cultural heritage taking place. Because if you go into the middle class community or the upper class, you're not going to see a lot of that. You're not going to see a lot of cultural representation. And then as far as systemic racism is concerned, what we dealing with is social pathology. And what do I mean by social pathology? We dealing with a disease that has plagued our community from generation to generation and continue to plague our community. Most of our behaviors is a result of marginalization and social stigmas. So being marginalized as a group, right? Being looked at as a minority, and the social stigma that has been placed on us, we carry those social stigma, we pass it down to each other. So a lot of the black on black crimes, that's a result of self-hate. That's a social pathology. It's a social pathology, period. But if we want to go into the level of dealing with humans as a collective, humans are prone to carry out violent behaviors towards one another. Humans can be very unpredictable. As a matter of fact, humans are unpredictable because one minute this person is this way, then the next minute that person turns out to be somebody totally different, right? A person can put on a character to hide who they really are. So what we have to understand about humans' behavior is either going to be cooperation or competitiveness. Either it's going to be competition or cooperation. And even in the middle of cooperation, there is still competition. And it's almost redundant to keep talking about what's going to be the solution for the Black community. What's the solution? What's the solution? And the topic been brought up for so many years. And people been saying the same thing over and over as far as what the solution is. However, the reality is those solutions are not going to be applied. Most of the solution that people are talking about is not going to be applied. Why? Because there is social politics as well. Just because you think somebody might be on the same page with you does not mean they are on the same page. There is idealism and then there is pragmatism. People can bring about a bunch of idealism, but if there is no pragmatism, then the ideal doesn't really matter. It's just simply the thought they have. So that's a lack of pragmatism taking place, which is why you keep hearing these same conversation over and over. Where is the solution? Where is the solution? Because there's a lack of pragmatism. And now it gets to the point where it becomes very overwhelming. What is the purpose of talking about something if nothing is going to be really be done about it? If nothing is going to be done about, why do you keep talking about the same thing over and over? So what Amanda Seale, as far as her points are concerned, they very logical. She has a very strong argument, but it's nothing new. It's nothing new. Her arguments are nothing new because it hasn't said before in the past. What she's talking about, most of the stuff that she's saying, it has been said before in the past. And another thing, although she's a very passionate woman, right? And she has a lot of love for the Black community. But let's just be realistic. She's an entertainer. She's an entertainer. Now, what I like about her is the fact that she don't identify as being a Democrat or a Republican. But what people gonna know, what they know her for is being in the entertainment business. So what I'm saying is you're not gonna really see people like her being amongst those in the inner city or just being out in the streets interacting with the people. You're not gonna really see people like Amanda. If she's gonna be around somebody, more than likely she's gonna be around other celebrities. She's not going to be around the locals like that. She's not going to come into your neighborhoods and give lectures and speeches and building programs and things like that. Because of her status and because of who she is, she's going to more than likely be around other celebrities, other Black celebrities at that. All right, let me see the comments over here. Brother put, remember, there is a difference between Black conservative versus a Black conservative. And Amanda was debating against 20 Black conservatives. She was. I'm not arguing against that. Now, a lot of them, I would say, I would say some of them had some decent arguments, but for the most part, yeah, overall, yes, they are. They have this coonish mentality, and most of them are young. They look like they were about in their 20s or late 20s at that. And then some of them were a little bit older. So if somebody in their 20s and their mid 20s, you don't expect much. What do you really expect? They're going along because right now they're just taking that journey. But as they get older and they start to study more and begin to do more research, then they're gonna start realizing that, well, they got some information wrong. There's some things that were inaccurate, so they have to go back and correct themselves. Right? Let me see. People are starting to argue fast. That's put when a black man kills another black man, it has more to do with systemic racism as much as personal accountability. And I can see that as being both sides, yes. Again, we have to look at it. Systemic racism brought about marginalization and social stigma. And personal accountability is dealing with how you personally feel about that individual. And what was your motive? What was your reason for killing this individual? Why did you do it? Why did you take that person's life? What was the intent behind it? So in sociology, they call that the system blame and person blame. So we could look at it as both system blame and person blame. System blame is because of the economic resources in the community, right? Or the social economic status of those individuals. Person blame because of how a person may feel about the other individual and what their personal intent was. What was the reason why they did it? You know, put I listened to some of the debate between Amanda Seals and the Black conservatives, but she did use emotionalism and the projection of her voice to make her points more valid. She did. I agree. She did. Yeah, now there was emotionalism and she did raise her voice at certain people, right? To try to be a little bit more domineering or trying to dominate the conversation. But at the same time, she was saying that these people won't let her talk or they're not respecting her views, but want them to but what she say? She said they want her to respect their views, but they wasn't respecting her views. And she was doing exactly what she said they was doing. So to certain individuals, I agree. So I could say that she was being a little arrogant and egotistical right then and there. But at the same time, I see that she was passionate. Yes, I do remember that show. Yes, he had so many people. He had Francis Cress Welsing. Let me see who else he had on there. I think he had Dr. Amos Wilson on there. He had a lot of prominent black people in the community that was on his show. So I do remember that show. Yes, oh yeah, he was very, very pro black. Yes. Yep, he did. He had Dr. John Henry Clark. He did. Let me see. Let me read the comments on here. Although the conservatives were very wrong in their discourse, she should allow them to make their point. True. The one dude that brought up hard work and black slave owners, I wanted to jump through the phone and smack him because he wasn't bringing up the fact that most black slave owners were free and family. But see, a lot of people wouldn't know that. All right, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna allow you guys to come on here and talk. for about a good maybe 5 or 10 minutes. So if you want to come on here, here's the link, and you guys can share your thoughts and share your views and opinion, and we can go from there. So, but outside of that, I think it's necessary to talk about certain things or bring up certain issues. Um, Overall, it was a learning experience. It was a learning experience for her. It was a learning experience for those 20 people on there. So if you guys want to come on here and share your thoughts and tell me what you think about it, the link is in the chat. But at the same time, this is why I keep stressing that it's important for us as a community to start reading and studying our history and studying social behaviors. I always stress the importance of it because that way we would have, when it comes down to having a debate, you will always have the sources to validate, to support your claim, to support your argument, right? Now, I know this debate was something totally different. It wasn't something that was dealing with people gathering up sources and information to support their claims or whatnot. But formal debate, in a formal debate, when you do when you're doing presentation and things like that, you will have to make sure that you have some books, some articles, or something to support your argument. Mhm. But that's my thoughts on the whole Amanda Seals. Like I say, I respect the sister. She's very intelligent woman, very passionate, knows her history, knows the information. She's very wise. But at the same time, if people know her, they're not gonna know her as an activist. They're gonna know her as an entertainer because that's where her beginning start was in entertainment business, and that's what she's known for. So the reality is you're not gonna see people like her in your communities. You're not gonna see her at a lot of these bookstores, right? Black owned bookstores like that. You're not gonna see her standing on the corner talking to the people. So a lot of the celebrities that talk black empowerment, black excellence or whatnot, they're not coming to your communities. They're not gonna really come on the block and sit down and talk to you. There's very few that will. There's very few that are very down to earth and they have no problem coming into the neighborhood and interacting with the locals. But then there are the rest of them that's not going to do it. They can talk a great point, but are they really going to come into the community? I would say one of the few celebrities that actually interact and be around the locals a lot is a rapper. One of the few rappers, and that is Lil Boosie. Now, Lil Boosie ain't no historian. He's Hey, you guys. So I apologize about that. It's storming over here where I'm at. So I'm going to make it real quick before I just log off. Yeah, I'm going to make it real quick and fast. Yeah, it's storming pretty bad over here, but yeah, the whole point that I was making is basically that you're not going to have people or celebrities that really care. I was saying something about one of the few rappers that actually engage with those who are in the local community, right? Is somebody like Lil Boosie. And Lil Boosie is not an activist, of course. He's not an educator. He's just a rapper. So what I'm saying is somebody like Lil Boosie had more influence over the Black American culture or Black people in America than someone like Amanda Seales. Lil Boosie would have more greater influence of the Black community, right? Just because he's around local and performing at different venues or whatnot and just interacting with the people than somebody like Amanda Seales, Talib Kweli, just to name a few individuals. Mos Def. These people you're not going to ever really see. If for anything, they're going to be on social media. So I mean, that that's something that's very interesting, right? Those who are very radical, those who are very that's very involved in the that's into the knowledge, right? You know what I'm saying? They're celebrities. You're not gonna really see them interacting with the locals. Hell, you're not even gonna see David Banner. David Banner is not gonna ride down your neighborhood and say, "Hey, I'm gonna sit down and talk to you, young man." You gotta pay to see David Banner to talk to you. You might go somewhere to what's the event called, the Revolt. You might have to go to a Revolt event just to see somebody like Amanda, Talib Kweli, David Banner, and Mos Def. So, but let me see what Brother Kevin said. Stage. It was pretty entertaining because that's what people go there to watch it for the entertainment purpose. Yep. All right, you guys, let me go ahead and log off of here because it's storming where I'm at, and I don't want this to really cut off again. So what I'm going to do, I'm trying to see something. Take this off here. How do I get started? All right. So yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and log off before the connection goes out again. But thank you guys for tuning in, watching. Until next time, peace and power elevation. This your girl Tiffany, and I'm logging off. And that's my whole thought about the Amanda Seales debate. And I will keep you guys posted. So stay tuned. All right, peace.